Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Hey. Welcome to Promote Her Business, online, offline, all the time. My name is Josephine Hannon, but you can call me Jose, and I am the founder and chief promoter of Promote Her Business. I'm also your host for the entire Promote Her Advantage series. At Promote Her Business, we believe that if you want to have the ultimate advantage, you need to do what others don't so you can get what others won't. And one of the key ways to really get the ultimate advantage is not to be reactive in your business, but to take that time you really need to step back away from your business and also be strategic. In our last interview, the Doreen Milano, CEO of Visions to Excellence, discussed how she not only recommends strategic business planning to all her clients, but how strategic planning was key to growing her construction firm's revenue to over $1 million in 4 years when she was CFO. And strategic planning is not just key in the construction industry, it's key across all industries, no matter what stage of business you're in, no matter how long you've been in business. And one of the biggest myths is that strategic planning is just something you do early on, or you make your business plan and then you do it and you forget about it and you go on. But really what we're going to talk about today is how strategic business planning is not something you do once, but it's something that's really a tool that aids your business for as long as you're in business. And specifically today we're going to hear a success story of a business owner just like you who has been leveraging strategic planning for years and even used it to really bounce back in face of the economy. So what you're going to learn is more precious than gold and may just impact what you're doing in business, not just this quarter, but it may impact what you're doing in business indefinitely around strategic planning. So you're going to want to hear every single word. So go to a quiet place, grab a pen, and get ready to take some copious notes. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Gary Collins. He's the president of Windows and Beyond, the Bay Area's most trusted window and remodeling contractor. Once again, that's Windows and Beyond. Now, Gary is the perfect person to tell us his success story because he is a very seasoned veteran in business. He's been in the construction industry for 33 years, 25 of those years in the window business. He was somebody who actually had the perseverance to survive the crash and begin rebuilding again. And what he told me is that having a strategic plan has really assisted him in being able to build his business back up and eventually be able to have a sellable model. So Gary Collins, are you there?
I am here.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Gary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and how you got to be the Bay Area's most trusted window and remodeling contractor?
Wow, that sounds like a long conversation there. I got into the construction industry out of losing a job in the early 80s to the economy. Was living in Silicon Valley and came home one day without a job but had a mortgage and a pregnant wife at home. So I had to figure something out, and my wife suggested I look at my skill set and see if there was something in there that would work. So ultimately I became a handyman and worked that into becoming a general contractor. And went from there into kitchen and bath remodeling, and later also picked up the window industry, which we are primarily in now.
Gotcha.
What else? What was the rest of that question?
So you told us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business. I'm curious about how you became the most trusted window and remodeling contractor, because I mean, at least from the business owners that I've talked to, it takes a while to become trusted.
Well, I think a lot of that is longevity. You have to be old enough to be the the wise one, and have suffered a lot along the way. The lessons aren't always easy, but they're always there. I came from most of my life before this was in the service industry, and had worked for companies as large as 3M. And I learned that customer service was an important thing. A lot of the businesses that I was in back then, that was what we did. Customer service was our job. I don't know, it's at my core that service is what you do. And to this day, I will tell you that it is the thing that sets us apart from other companies. We've got plenty of competition out there, but not everyone will put their heart and soul into making sure that the customer's happy in the end. And I think that's a key piece to our success, and the fact that people do trust us enough that currently about 95% of our business comes from return and referral.
Wow, 95%. That is extremely high.
It is. It's it's a hard mark to keep. You really have to provide great customer service, and you have to have vendors that will assist you in that. If a vendor does not understand customer service, then it's hard to keep them on the team, because it makes us work that much harder. So it's part of how we select the people that we work with, is to look at how they run their businesses and what kind of response we get when we have issues.
So it sounds like you really are very intentional about looking at the big picture. It's not just being in action and just working with any vendor you can find, but it's really having a very strategic, intentional approach. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And I noticed that when you volunteered to share how strategic planning has been key to your success, it sounded like it was a topic that was really near and dear to your heart. So can you say a little bit about why strategic planning is so near and dear to your heart?
Well, I've found out on numerous occasions that without it, it's very difficult to move forward. It's, how shall I say, saved my butt in on numerous occasions. Working with business coaches has allowed us to, or given us the impetus to do it and keep doing it, because it's something that for me, it doesn't come natural. And as a business owner, I need to be pulled out of the fray from time to time to step back and look. I know it's important. It's just not natural. Just like, keeping your body in shape is important. But for a lot of us, it just isn't a natural thing to go to the gym or to, go out and do physical stuff. So a lot of times it takes coaching to get that done, but the importance of it shows up pretty quickly. Our ability to do what we're currently doing in rebuilding is a direct result of that planning. I kind of knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, but I didn't have a roadmap. And sit down and look at who we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there really makes a difference. And having that relationship come into everything we do as we go forward really provides the glue that keeps it all going and gets us. Anybody can grow a company to whatever proportions you want. Whether you do it from the soul that you started with or not depends on that strategy. And since service and fun and customer care and all of those things are part of our strategy, that allows us to, if we stay with that, when we grow to this larger entity, that will still be the soul of the business, who we are. And I think that's really kind of the bottom line of the strategic planning, for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. So it's really about making sure you have the right pieces in place so that you can create a sustainable business that focuses intentionally on what's core to having your business work on many levels.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, you look around, especially in Silicon Valley, at the companies. Apple's the first one that comes to mind. There was a real core to that business in the beginning. And we've seen it over the years stray from that core and falter and come back to that core and grow again. There's, lots of small companies that do the same thing. Sometimes they stray and get lost. But having that strategic plan as the basic component of the business brings us back to that frequently. We're getting ready to open a showroom, making all the plans for it, and I can't believe all the things that I would not have thought of until it was time to do them that we've got in the system now. And looking at our advertising, does it say we're fun? We're who we are, or is it just broadcasting a message like everybody else? And so that strategic planning goes everywhere.
Mm. So this really complements what Doreen Milano had talked to us about earlier in this month, which was that strategic business planning is not just something you create once, but it's something that is very active and living in your business. And how she described the strategic business plan was the implementation process of a business plan for execution. And I was curious, and I know you've touched on this a little bit, but can you be even more specific about, to all the business owners out there who really don't know concretely what a strategic business plan is, can you talk a little bit more about the specific elements that you look at on a daily basis?
Well, we have, for one, our plan is basically on the piece of paper it was created on, hanging on my office wall. I frequently forget about it because it's behind me, but when people come into my office to meet with me, it's there for them. I guess that's good. But it's there for reference when we have questions. It's and it is a living thing. If we find that part of it is not the truth, then, we can change that. I think that's one of the important parts of the strategic plan is that it's alive. You can't just develop that plan and then go forward because things may change along the way. But having it there to rely on when we have questions, when we have customers that we're not sure really fit our mold. Why are we clashing with this customer? We can go look at that and say, okay, they don't fit these elements of our business model. They're not fun. We don't want to play with them. So, those are some of the things. I may have strayed a bit, but that's having it as a constant part of the business is important for that, and for me to have it as reference material on a daily basis. And when we're planning things, like I just said, we've just put together an ad for our new showroom grand opening, and we went back and looked at, is this going to be a fun event? Because fun is a big element of what we insist upon as a business. We don't want to be just a stodgy old company. So I'm not. What else do you need to know about that?
No, I love what you said, and I think you brought up a point that a lot of business owners don't think about, which is that really creating the strategic plan, it's not just about what are you going to do, but it's who are you going to be? Who are you going to be? And I think asking that question about your differentiator and being able to have it all come down to your core of fun is so powerful. I think it's a big learning for most of our audience because most business owners I talk to, they're not able to differentiate their brand in really a core word that they can execute on and come back to, and that, is visual in their office. So I really love what you're talking about. Now I'm curious, I know a little while ago you said that this strategic planning is not something that's always been natural, right, to you. And yeah. I'm curious how long it took you to learn strategic planning or value it over the years.
Well, let's start with I'm still learning. It really is a living thing in that there's always new stuff coming up around it and about it. It's interesting because it, again, for me, and I think generally from what I've learned over the years, for the average entrepreneur, that's not a standard in who we are. We're entrepreneurs because we have a great idea and we go implement it. A lot of times I've seen people who were great at coming up with a business idea but needed to just sell it and move on because they had no understanding for building it into the future. And I think that's really key. I have to give up that entrepreneurial side for a while to sit down and look at a strategy and how we're going to go forward rather than just going blindly into the universe. It can work sometimes. It worked for me for a long time. I will tell you that having a strategy is probably more effective. Having some plan is really helpful. And in my industry, in the construction industry, so many of the people that run the businesses are tradespeople and don't have any business training. That was the first thing I noticed because I came from larger businesses that had, standard operating plans, and I got into the construction industry and found out that everybody had a different one, and they all ran the same businesses. So that you talk about a differentiator. That is one of them that I discovered right off the bat. Operating your business as a business rather than just being somebody who could come in and do the work makes a big difference. Customers see you as more professional when you show up more professionally. I think that the importance of the plan is huge. The learning of it is the hard part. It takes a lot of, for me, it took a lot of time to get myself in gear, and I still have difficulty coming up with it, but I've learned along the way that I have a team. The people that I work with, whether they're in the office or outside of the office, that I can bring other people together to get ideas from, and I don't have to do it all myself. So that makes it a little easier to deal with, and that's how we often come up with the answers.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're touching on a very important point, that just because you're in business for yourself doesn't mean you have to be in business by yourself. And I'm very curious. I'm very curious when you're talking about your team. Can you expand upon that a little bit? Does that include employees? Does that include vendors? Who are all the stakeholders that are really part of your team?
Well, I have an office manager who is a minority partner in the business. She is a major player in the business as far as the real world. She is an equal partner. We bounce ideas off of each other. We yell and scream at each other. We tell each other to take a deep breath when it's necessary. But we play together. And then when we work with vendors, those who are willing to work in our realm, we're the same way. And I think generally they see the same face no matter who they're talking to. An example for your question is yesterday putting together this ad. I didn't have the time. I'm way too busy right now to be doing that, but we're at deadline and this ad has to come together. So my office manager, Kay, put together an outline based on our conversation, sent it off to the representative from the magazine, and between them kind of put an ad together. I looked at it, made some minor changes to it, and we're ready to go. But it took three of us. It took a team to make it happen. And I had to give up, well, there are a couple of things. I had to give up control over it, other than, final say on it. But I had to give up control over thinking I knew what to do. And the other one was I had to give up thinking I knew what to do, because I'm not the creative one in that realm. And I allowed someone else to put things together, and I really liked the end result. And it came from my ideas, but I couldn't have done that myself. So, and we have other vendors we work the same way with. If we have customer problems, issues that come up, we try to get together as a team and work them out and make sure that our vendors understand how important customer service is to us so that they can represent us the same way.
Mm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, that you're really that dedicated and committed and intentional about making sure that your differentiator is not just for your own company, but even your vendors are really representative of that. Um, that's definitely the next level. And probably, I mean, what you said, before with having a 95% retention rate, I'm really curious. How do you feel that team ties into that retention rate?
Absolutely is how it ties in. If we weren't all on the same track, playing the same game, I don't think that would be possible. For me to go out on a sales call and espouse to a customer who we are and why they should do business with us, and then have them call the office the day that their job starts with a question and not get that same treatment would throw that whole game out. I can tell you lots and lots of companies that operate that way, that, the different pieces of the company don't operate on the same plan. And people see that. They may not physically understand it, or mentally understand it, but physically it affects people. They kind of pull back and go, what was wrong with that? Why don't I feel warm and fuzzy anymore? And when people call my office and ask questions or have problems, they need to get that same compassion when the phone's picked up. What can we do for you? How can we make this better? How can we fix whatever is going on? And that has to be everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of being strategic about getting your entire team on board with the plan, do you find that the plan is something that literally you write down and your vendors look at and they also repeatedly look at it, or is it something that's more verbal or a combination of both?
Well, I think it's just it's an understanding that we have. It is frequently verbalized. Problems do come up, and it's verbalized in the correction of issues. If we have issues with shipping or we have issues with things being on time, they know that our company's representation is slighted by their actions, and we make that part of the conversation rather than just yelling and screaming at people, why can't you do this differently? It helps for them to understand why it is that it affects us that way. So I'd love to have a written agreement with all of my vendors, but I don't think that's going to happen. But a lot of our, for instance, subcontractors, our window installers, people that we work with, if we do remodeling business, those people all understand that customer service is the core. And almost always customers comment about our people and how wonderful it was to have them in their home. It's a difficult place to work because you're under the close scrutiny of your client, and you're working in their domain, and you need to treat it as their domain, not your workplace. And the people that we work with understand that. So again, that model carries through into the field and into the customer's eyes.
Mm. Now, I'm curious, what do you think? You've talked a lot about making sure you're clear on your differentiator, being strategic about what you're holistically doing with your team, with your vendors, having a plan on your wall. What would you say is one of your biggest success stories coming out of strategic planning?
Well, it's still in play. I would say that expanding our business to where we're going, what we're doing right now to get there, all of that is part of that, because coming out of the, everybody's got different terms for it, the economic disaster that we've all been through, I noticed that I had really lost any potential for vision. Again, it's never been, long-term vision has been difficult for me. I'm not a big planner, but my vision didn't go past my nose most of the time during those bad years. It was a day-to-day game. What can we do to survive until tomorrow was the game we played. And I remember there was a day I basically woke up and said, maybe we don't need to survive anymore. Maybe we can start to grow again. And I needed some assistance in that. So coaching was the answer to getting me out of that short-term realm. And now here we are on the verge of opening up. We'll have about 750 square feet of showroom space now, that I wouldn't even have imagined 3 years ago. And it's coming to fruition. It's almost scary how quickly it's all coming together now. And I'm pleased with what I'm seeing. And now the next step is to make sure that we start getting into play with bringing people into our business to work with, because it's going to get bigger. And I'm starting to see a distance again. I'm thinking about a larger game, which has been really, really difficult over recent years. And it's surprising to me sometimes when I think that way and go, wow. So.
Now, I'm curious, you've talked a lot about the importance of having a business coach at your side to help you do the things maybe historically you've struggled with, like planning. I'm curious, there's many women-owned business owners in our community who considered hiring a business coach, or they're looking for business coaches. What do you think is really key to finding the right business coach for you? And how did you know that you chose the right one?
Well, I've worked with a couple of coaches in the last 10 years. I guess technically 3 over the last 10 years or so. I started out with a coach through eMyth, and that was good in that it kept me growing and moving forward, and then when the economy tanked, there wasn't anything growing and moving forward in my blood, so we ended that relationship. And I still believe in a lot of Michael Gerber's philosophies about business. The eMyth is a great book to read. But then I moved on to someone else that I had met who actually called himself the contractor's coach. After working with a number of contractors, he decided that was a game that needed to be worked on. So, and he's doing very well with that. The coaching was good, and it worked for a while, and then I kind of left it for a while to move on, and then I got to another coach. I think over the whole thing, what you really need to have is you've got to have a relationship with that person. You need to know their coaching style, and you need to be willing to follow what they're saying. And if you don't believe in them, or if you don't have that relationship where you can trust them to guide you, then you really can't utilize the service. And I think that's where a lot of people, again, especially in the trades, have difficulty, is giving up this thing that we created, and that's that entrepreneurial side too. You know, this is my business. Nobody knows it better than I do. But having played on a team, I realized that may be the case, but there may be people that have additions to it. So, you know, you can be the quarterback all day long, but without the rest of the team, there isn't much of a game to play. And so I had to give up this notion. No, I continually have to give up this notion that I know best and that I've got all the answers, because I don't. So the relationship that I have to have with that coach is one that allows me to trust their input, to follow their guidance, and then the coach has to be able and willing to push. You know, you have to go beyond your limits to grow. And that's what I marvel at now. I see what we're doing and go, wow, how did we get here? Well, we got here through utilization of a number of different pieces, but the coaching is what kept it all together and pushing in that direction. And that really is a relationship that you have to have with a coach. So there are different types, different styles of coaches, and I think it's just a matter of finding, you know, it's interviewing and finding the person that you're comfortable with, and maybe using them for a while and finding out that isn't quite right and looking at somebody else. So there you have it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know some people are very private about their coaches that they're using because they're you know, golden resource and really helping them behind the scenes drive their business. But I was wondering if you would be open to sharing who your coach is that you're currently working with.
Well, the one I'm currently working with is Doreen Milano.
Cool. And yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience?
There's a lot of backstory, but when people ask the difference between the coaches that I've worked with most recently, one is more business-like, and Doreen, how I put it, represents a more holistic approach. Part of coaching is understanding the machine that you're working with, so you have to know the person and a lot of the background of them. But she takes a lot of that into account and understands it at another level that allows her to push in the right places, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that keeps us working with her is that she's there pushing, but it's not like we notice it. It's just it's kind of in the background, and it's a subtle. She's a subtle partner. I don't know. It's just it's been a good relationship, and I have referred her to numerous people. Some I find are scared to death of coaches because it'll push them into some place they're not ready to go. It's usually what I find. But she's, it's interesting. You talk about people being willing to share who their coaches are. When I was working with a contractor's coach, his schedule was pretty full, and the concern was, the shortage. If I blow him off, I may not get back in. Well, but he's a good businessman. He's already got 2 more people working with him doing what he does, teaching people how to do what what he's doing. And so I think, that that thought that I had is not really valid in most cases. A good coach should understand how to build their business as well as ours. So I would only hope that people like Doreen get a full schedule and have to grow their businesses, because it's a good business to be in, and I think it's really important. I've heard over the years everybody talk about, they relate it to sports. If you want to go out and learn how to run, you might need somebody to coach you and teach you how to run properly and how to be prepared for it and how to eat. And, there's a lot of pieces to it. So if you want to go out and run a good business, maybe you should have somebody that can coach you in how to be prepared for it and what you need to know to go into the future.
So, Gary, I definitely have to ask you this, because there's been some pushback about business owners feeling comfortable, quote unquote, opening up their business kimono, meaning writing down their plan, being transparent with another person about what's going on in their business. There's many business owners, they're afraid people are going to steal their ideas, or they're even nervous about talking to a business coach about what's going on in their business. And I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy for that one. I have been transparent forever. It may be one of the problems I have. I don't know. What I'm doing isn't a secret. It isn't anything new. It's that we do it that way. A lot of businesses have a hard time staying focused on what their philosophies are. And I think it's really important that we stay focused on that stuff. It's what made us successful. So being transparent about it is just another way of being coached, because frankly, if I tell all my customers how we operate and all my vendors how we operate, and then we don't operate that way, they're probably going to let us know. And so it's just another, it's just like you coming to me and saying, I want to quit smoking. And then the next time I see you, you got a cigarette in your mouth. And I say, you said you wanted to quit smoking. So now what you've done is created a support system, because you said, this is what I don't want to do. And my job then is to say, well, so don't do it. And I see the same thing in business. If I create a world where this is the way I want to do things, and I'm not doing it that way, somewhere in the universe I'm going to get that pushback that says, oh, wait a minute, you're not being true to your story. So for me, opening my kimono is, it's usually fluffing in the wind anyway. I'm not one to think that hiding all my secret techniques is a big deal. No, I don't share all my financial information with everybody, nor do I share a lot of other business pieces, but how we operate, I'd love to see more businesses take that on. When I got into contracting, I found that nobody wanted to share how they did their bidding or how they ran their businesses. So I had to kind of make it up myself like everybody else had. And then I discovered that there were actually people out teaching a standardized philosophy for running a contracting business. And that was a big surprise to me. But it's also a good thing, and it puts everybody on the same plateau in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think the piece of it that I thought was such a unique perspective that you just talked about was really the accountability piece of the plan part of it. That there's nothing for a coach to hold you accountable to if you don't have something to account to. And how do you, right? And like, it's literal, it's physical, it's something that you can face up to and measure against, and it does make you transparent and it does make you vulnerable, but it also just might make you phenomenal and at a champion level. I mean, I don't know many businesses that have a 95% retention rate. I don't know many businesses that are the most trusted in what they're doing. And I mean, and you're both of those things. And so I just think it's such a lesson to everybody who's listening today about the importance of pushing past your vulnerability, taking accountability, and being willing to put yourself out there so that you can hold yourself accountable to bigger things than, you can even see possible for yourself 3 years ago, like you said. So I just think that's such an inspiring message to everybody.
Well, thank you. I hope that in my years in business that's one of the key elements, is that I've inspired someone to, take it to the next level. Show me what can be done from here. And I believe in my personal world and in the business world that's the way to go. If we all play together, then we learn from each other, and it's a game of leapfrog then.
Absolutely. So in terms of learning from each other, I guess there's two pieces of that. There's the what to do and there's the what not to do. So I was hoping that we could ask you both of those questions. So the first question is the what not to do. So what do you think are the biggest mistakes to avoid when doing strategic planning?
The biggest mistakes to avoid. What comes to mind is just getting in your head about what will or won't work. You have to start strategic planning with a clean slate, and it has to, for me, it has to come from a heart level. It has to, it really has to be who I am and who my business is. My business really can't be much different than who I am, because then things just don't mesh. So not being open, not being willing to listen to input and develop a plan is definitely a downside. Thinking that you can sit down and just put it all on paper and here's what we got, here's where we're going to go. If you have other people involved, you really need to bring them in and be open to that.
So So what do you think is really key on the flip side of that to being successful with strategic planning?
I guess, well, and here's our conversation. Having it always available, and more than anything, having someone, whether it's a coach or someone else in your life, that can keep you accountable to it, that can be sure that you're following it, because human nature is to ignore it and just keep moving. If I were to just go out and do what I do every day and not pay attention to my sales numbers and other stuff, then my success is hit and miss. But it's been very consistent since I've started following a plan and allowing myself to be coached through that plan.
So since you brought up numbers, I'm going to have to ask you the follow-up question, which is how important, I mean, especially for people out there that don't consider themselves numbers people, or they want to cover their eyes, or they're also trying to make a bounce back or come back, due to different economic situations. What advice do you have for those people that are like, oh, Gary's telling us to look at our numbers? That's scary.
Well, it's interesting because we're probably on track for our growth for the year. I looked at the numbers at the end of the year and said, okay, so we can push to this level. But how would I know if I hadn't done that? If I hadn't at least set a goal, it's that shoot for the stars and accept the moon. If I weren't aiming at that goal, when I get halfway there, I wouldn't know that I was halfway. And I wouldn't know that part of it is the satisfaction each month in knowing that we're hitting that target, that we're actually moving forward in the direction that we want to go. Right now, all of those numbers are on me. I'm the one that generates that stuff. And if I'm not doing my job, then I don't get the results that I want. So it's really, really important for me to have that stuff, and it's on a whiteboard in front of my desk where I can see it every day. Sometimes I make it disappear, but I'm learning through coaching and just practicing to be attentive to those numbers, because they're what will allow me what I want in my life. And I want to have some freedom. I've had a lot more time off this year. I'm still growing the business. Things are still working, but I'm moving toward that state again where my business isn't my entire life. And without keeping track of the numbers and stuff, I don't think that would be possible.
Mm. And do you find, as you're moving towards this stage of having more time for yourself and not just being your business, do you find strategically that you're transferring the knowledge around numbers and metrics to look at to your team? And for other business owners in that same process of thinking about the sustainability of their business and how to transfer that knowledge to their teams, do you have any wisdom around how to instill a value for numbers and metrics and how to disseminate that information?
I think it's one of those things that is primarily taught through example. There are certain people that are goal-driven and will always set that goal out there and attempt it. There are an awful lot of people who are just afraid to set goals because they won't achieve them. I haven't achieved all my goals, but I've gone a lot further than I ever would have without them. And that's what we're seeing now in our business. If I hadn't been driven to go where I wanted to go, that's the whole thing. I said, here's what I want, and then I put into play a system, a machine that's driving me there. Now, I can stand up and say that's not what I want at any point. But as long as that's where I want to go, I've got this system that's pushing me along the road. And I have to let people know what the goals are to get them to participate in that game with me. At the end of the year, if we hit our goal, we'll even tell our customers that, you were part of this. Because we have so many return and referral clients, they become really part of the family. We have many people that we consider, friends and family in our business. And I always want them to know, thanks to you, we were able to achieve this. I think it makes people feel a little bit better about, being in the game, being one of the people that helped you out.
Mm. Yeah, that's very, yes, I think that's very important. I love how you're all about having everybody, all your stakeholders, see the big picture and how customers are key players in that, and you're celebrating with them, and your whole business is dedicated to them, and you have such an emphasis on customer service to have them want to even play in that game or want to celebrate you because you've done so much for them. And I think that's such a powerful lesson for anybody who wants to increase their retention numbers. So thank you, Gary, for sharing that. So we only have a couple more minutes left. So there's so many golden nuggets you gave us today. If you could only choose one action, just one action for our listeners to take, what do you think would be the ultimate action that would give them the ultimate advantage?
Oh boy, one?
Just one.
Geez. I think the one thing is just to discover the team that you trust and want to play with. Whether it be, if you're just a solo entrepreneur starting a business or a large company, finding the key elements and the people you can trust to be supported by and to support, so that you have a team rather than just, being the CEO and running the show doesn't really work effectively if the rest of the team or the rest of the people aren't on the team. As a solo entrepreneur, sometimes the team is having a spouse or a coach or somebody who's in the background, being the cheerleader and the guide. And so I think, just figuring out who you can play with and get the most value out of is probably the key.
That is such an important takeaway. So I hope everybody is writing that down. So go ahead and write down who is on my team. Who is on my team? And just because you're a solopreneur, as Gary said, doesn't mean that you don't have a team. It's about who can help you get where you want to go faster than you could have by yourself, who can catch what you're missing, who can give you that added level of accountability, even if you have to open up your business kimono and show them what's really going on. So Gary, I think that is just fabulous. I'm so glad that you were able to spend some time with us today and share what really makes your business tick from a strategic planning level. It's not every day that we get to have somebody on our show that is the Bay Area's most trusted window and remodeling contractor with a 95% retention rate. That is just amazing. I really hope everybody listens to this interview not just once, but multiple times, and also checks out Gary's website. He is the president at Windows and Beyond. Once again, that's Windows and Beyond, and he is opening up a new showroom. And Gary, can you tell us when that's opening up?
We're doing our retail grand opening on August 18th. It's a Thursday evening. We're just going to open up for about 4 hours for the public. And there again, we're going to put together our team. We'll have architects and builders and designers and people and factory reps coming in to compete with people. They're all part of the people we play with. And so we're going to have a big event that night, and then we'll have other events going forward from there. One of them will be to recognize our clientele, come down and see what you've allowed us to do.
Gotcha. That's very, very important. And perfect. So if everybody liked what you heard today and learned a lot from the Gary Collins, you absolutely cannot miss next month, because we are going to be telling you even more about how to get the ultimate advantage in your business and marketing and in sales. So make sure to stay tuned. We do our interviews every first and third Tuesday of the month at noon Pacific, and make sure to fill out our survey immediately following this interview today, because you will have a chance to win a Biggest Difference consult valued at $600. And this consult will help you figure out what will make the biggest difference in your business this quarter. So do fill out the 2 or 3 minute survey at the end of this call and be able to really propel your business forward. And until then, remember to promote your business and each other online, offline, all the time. Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Give me a P.
P.
Give me an H.
H.
Give me a B.
B.
What do you say?
Hey.
Hey.